Welcome to Armageddon TV YouTube channel. Ukraine has launched an all-out offensive in the south and is advancing towards Crimea. Ukrainian warriors who saved half of Kherson are now sweeping Putin and his generals. The war between Ukraine and Russia had turned into a long-range artillery clash for nearly 40 days. Although Russia captured 2 cities in the Donbas region in this process, it could not provide full control, and still Ukrainian armed forces can dominate the Russian army from the direction of Kharkiv. On the other hand, southern Ukraine is a nightmare for the Russian army. The Russian army had withdrawn some of the troops it had sent to the south to occupy the Luhansk and Severodonetsk regions. But this was one of the most critical mistakes made by the Russian army. The Ukrainian army would not forgive this mistake, and with this opportunity, Ukraine would give the Russian army its darkest nightmares. Because the Ukrainian armed forces was such better organized on the front and could conduct strategies operations much more securely. In addition, Ukraine is still able to control strategic regions both in the south and the east. Taking advantage of the situation of the Russian army in the east, the Ukrainian armed forces launched an all-out attack in the south 20 days ago. The first offensive operation of the Ukrainian army was so strong that the Russian army was shocked. On June 26, the Ukrainian army launched an all-out heavy attack on Snake Island from land, air, and sea. Ukrainian long-range artillery bombarded the island from the ground, while Ukrainian fighter jets bombarded the Russian presence on the island for 4 days. In addition, the Ukrainian Marines provided support with Neptune and Harpoon missiles. The Russian Navy was badly wounded, and Russian President Vladimir Putin had to announce his withdrawal from Snake Island. Ukraine then cleared the Russian presence on the island with Bayraktar TB2s and planted the Ukrainian flag on the island. This was the first important stage of all-out offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces from the south, and it was successfully completed. Also, with the liberation of Snake Island, Ukrainian grain could be exported to the world. The Russian generals predicted 15 days ago that the Ukrainian armed forces would stop their activities in the south with just one operation, but they were mistaken. After Ukraine liberated Snake Island, it directed its attacks towards Kherson. Kherson was the gateway to Crimea, and Ukraine claims to liberate all lands, including Crimea, and defeat Russia. In the last 15 days, we see that Ukraine has partially realized this desire. The Russian army was exhausted by the long fighting in the Donbas, and they were also out of ammunition, and their logistics routes were being destroyed one by one by the US-made HIMARS M142 long-range multiple rocket launchers. Ukrainian armed forces launched an all-out assault on Kherson, and this week is the most intense time of conflict. Currently, the Ukrainian army has destroyed more than 24 Russian ammunition depots and headquarters in the south in the past 2 weeks. In addition, Russian command centers, mobile headquarters, and logistic routes were destroyed. Ukrainian artillery constantly bombards Russian positions, and the Ukrainian Air Force makes at least 20 strikes a day. However, the hero of the success is undoubtedly the American-made high-mobility artillery system M142. Even before the M142s were transferred to Ukraine, they were scaring the Russian generals, because these systems could launch missiles 2 times farther than Russian artillery, and their power was much higher. Currently, according to operational records, the M142 HIMARS multiple rocket launcher systems in Ukraine succeeded in destroying at least a dozen Russian ammunition depots and headquarters, hundreds of Russian military equipment, and soldiers in just 3 weeks. The first shipment of M142 to Ukraine was completed between June 21st and 23rd. And HIMARS' first documented operation was a successful midnight operation against a Russian military base in eastern Ukraine. As a result of the operation that took place on the night of 27 June, at least 40 Russian soldiers and 1 Russian general were blown up together with the headquarters. With this attack of Ukraine, Russia lost its 8th general. This was also the first Russian general destroyed by American missiles. Also this week, a Russian headquarters near Kherson in southern Ukraine was blown up by the Ukrainian M142. A large number of Russian military equipment and the 9th Russian general were destroyed. In this attack, the second Russian general was destroyed by the Ukraine with American missiles. Last week, 12 Russian soldiers, 1 Russian colonel were neutralized in the destruction of the Russian headquarters by Ukrainian artillery. With these losses, Russia lost 59 high-ranking soldiers in Ukraine in 140 days. Also, on July 13 and July 14, the largest Russian ammunition depots in Kherson were blown up by the M142. The attacks of the M142 on Russian ammunition depots were so strong that it is said that the fires are still not extinguished. The Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation refused to comment on the generals lost in Ukraine. Russia rarely comments on the high-ranking soldiers and overall casualties it lost in Ukraine. While American HIMARS encourages the Ukrainians and the West so much, it scares Russia so much. So, what more reason could we have to recognize these weapons than that? Let's make a detailed examination of the weapon together. Officially called the M142 HIMARS, the system consists of a launch capsule capable of firing 6 guided missiles mounted on a truck, with a range of around 50 miles. The main advantages of the HIMARS systems over almost all other types of artillery is the field today, is that its range allows it to attack warehouses and command centers far behind enemy lines and enemy artillery batteries without risking counterfire. In this case, if Russia is already short of ammunition, even if it's not as much as Ukraine, it does it great harm. The only condition of the USA when giving HIMARS to Ukraine was that the armed forces of Ukraine did not use these weapons for defensive purposes. They were assured that they would not attack any Russian border. Seeing this happen also paved the way for many more HIMARS to be sent to the region. While Russian forces in Ukraine had a major advantage in the large number of long-range fires in the Donbass, which form a central part of Russia's military strategy at this stage of its invasion, Ukraine's use of HIMARS gave the Ukrainian armed forces a number of advantages. After getting acquainted with the system, the Ukrainian armed forces become adept at hitting Russian ammunition depots and command centers well behind the front lines. With the training received, the goals of the Russian army have now become child's play for the Ukrainian armed forces. Moscow and Russian media sources either try to hide HIMARS' offensiveness on the Ukrainian battlefields or express growing concern and dismay at the effects of Russian attacks. It is unknown how long this silence will continue, because the effects of HIMARS are huge and they are making a bigger difference in the region every day. In fact, the huge destruction of the American HIMARS in Russian positions is even reflected in NASA satellite images. It is seen likely that Russian President Vladimir Putin will give a warning to the United States about this in the near future. However, this will not be a solution, because since February 24, Putin did not heed any warnings from the USA and did what he wanted. This prevented him from having a say over the USA. At the same time, Russian state media dubiously claimed that Ukraine used HIMARS to deliberately launch attacks on civilian population centers in Russian-occupied Ukrainian regions. It was a smear campaign. Russia is trying to prevent the use of HIMARS missiles, which it cannot find a cure for. By de-announcing its use in the region through the international media, the only problem could be that right now Ukraine is using HIMARS against Russian borders. If Ukraine were to hit targets located within Russia's borders in the future, Kyiv would risk incurring US ire in exchange for short-term tactical payments. Such attacks may also complicate the domestic political picture that Moscow's invasion of Ukraine does not directly affect Russia, thereby putting additional pressure on Russian President Putin's perception of the war as a limited special military operation. This could escalate into an official war, leading to massive Ukrainian devastation or result in Russian President Putin challenging the entire world. Ukraine will never take this risk, because going against the USA could mean completely losing NATO and the West. On the other hand, we saw how effectively Ukraine and Western weapons and was able to repel Russia. We hope Ukraine gets the freedom it deserves as soon as possible.